KCFP London, 900 CHML in Hamilton. Good to have you with us today. Who are you may well be the question many people in the Ontario Liberal Party are asking themselves these days after their crushing defeat on, of course, last Thursday in the provincial election. There should be, no matter what, win, lose, or draw, a reassessment of what a political party is all about, and let's have some honest evaluation of it. And I don't know if that's going on with these guys or not. But I'm hearing from an awful lot of them since the election results last Thursday night. And that's why I was so intrigued by an op-ed piece that appeared in the Bay Observer from a long-time Liberal who's basically asking, what's happened to my party? Vito Sgro is a chartered professional accountant. He's a former mayoral candidate back in 2018, a Liberal candidate for Flamborough-Glanbrook back in the 2021 federal election, and a longtime organizer and supporter of the Liberal Party here in Southern Ontario, especially in the Hamilton area. And he's the author of this piece, and I wanted to bring him on because I think this is a conversation that all political parties should have, and a very frank discussion about what went right, what went wrong. Vito Sgro, welcome to the program. It's good to have you with us today.
Hi, Bill. It's been a while. It's great talking to you again, and I want to say hi to all my friends in London. I went to the University of Western Ontario. It's a great city, and I made a lot of great friends, lifelong friends there. So good morning.
I know. Well, it is a great city. We're so proud to be broadcasting from there, too. And they've had their political ups and downs from party affiliations as well. Let me ask you right up front. It's a great piece, by the way, and we'll talk about some of the details of this in a second. Were you surprised at what happened last Thursday?
No, I probably knew about a week beforehand, 10 days before. I have a friend who is a pollster, and he's not a pollster for the public. His things don't go public, so he tells you the real facts. He was able to tell me what was going to happen with my elections, almost to the percent. He told us we're done, and we knew that long before. So I was hoping that maybe something would change, but no, I knew it was coming.
I got to tell, for listeners who may not know your background, and we just gave a brief overview of it here, you've been a longtime Liberal supporter, as you mentioned. You've been involved with the Federal Liberal Party since 1979 and been involved with a number of elections. But you don't mind calling out your party when you think it's time to do so. I know that I had you and a couple of other people on the panel in studio way back when about Bill Morneau's policy to do a small business. And you don't mind. I mean, you beat the drum for that an awful lot to the point where they eventually had to change the policy. So you may be a Liberal, but at the same time, you're not ideologically blind to what's going on.
Well, but I would argue that I am. I'm a true centrist. I don't care who came up with the idea. If it's a good idea, if it came from the right or the left, let's do it. And if my party, the party I love, the party I've been involved with since I was 14 years old, if they're coming up with something that I think is wrong, I'm going to talk about it. And I can tell you that doesn't make everyone happy. There were certain people, when I was asked to run, they were not happy about it at all. And to be quite frank with you, I don't care. This is the party that I think Canadians, the party that used to be, that Canadians need. I think the most effective government in my lifetime was Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin. They cared about social programs, but they realized you've got to pay for it. You've got to make sure that they last. We've got to enrich them. And how do you do that? You have to also be fiscally responsible. So I'm not afraid to open my mouth, and it has gotten me into trouble with the party. There's probably more Liberals who don't like me than not.
What happened to your party? Because it wasn't just, as you mentioned in the op-ed piece, this just didn't happen last Thursday. This has been going for some time.
We tried to out-NDP the NDP. And if someone really wanted it or liked those type of policies, they voted NDP. They didn't vote for us. It worked in 2014 with Premier Wynne. We were able to take a lot of the NDP vote and keep our vote. But over time, people got fed up. Bill, I've knocked on literally tens and tens and tens of thousands of doors in the last few decades. Probably 20,000 doors in the last 3 or 4 years, running for mayor, running, federally. People find a lot of things important, but if you don't mention that, I can't afford to buy a house, my children can't afford to buy a house, I can't find a doctor, my child can't find a job for what they went to school with, am I going to keep my job? Things like, if you don't put that at the top of your campaign and your platform, they're not going to pay attention to you, and that's what's happening. So yes, All the other things are extremely, extremely important, and you have to put them into your platform. But if you don't mention the things that everyday Canadians, what matter to them every day, they're going to tune you out. And to, put it in terms that some of my people in my party will understand, we're getting canceled. And I hate that term, by the way.
Well, and you've heard the rumors. I mean, this happens every time a party gets decimated in an election. When the aforementioned Chrétien government wiped out the Conservatives federally. Well, it wasn't Barry Mulroney by then; it was Kim Campbell, but it was the Mulroney regime. There was talk about, okay, the party's gone. The Conservative Party, as we know it, is going to be dead. The same thing has happened here. A couple of times, the NDP have not received party status in elections. So, well, that's it; they're dead in the water. We should merge. And you've heard that on election night, and I certainly did from some of the pundits, that maybe it's time for these two parties on the left to merge together to make a more powerful party. And then I've seen a lot of pushback from Liberals that say, we don't want to merge. We want to go back to where we should be. We're not, get away from the left. Let's move to the center where we belong. And I don't know that your members of your party actually agree with that now.
I can tell you, I have friends in all parties. People in a true NDP don't want to become Liberals, and believe me, people in the Liberal Party, for the most part, don't want to become part of the NDP either, or merge. The proof is in the pudding. A majority or a large part of people who used to vote Liberal, they went Conservative this time around. I was in the riding of Hamilton East Stony Creek, where I grew up. My good friend Jason Farr, city councillor in Hamilton, great public servant, ran. He's well liked. The polling showed him personally was well liked. I was in a poll, that my mother's poll. It was the 7th highest poll out of 200 normally for Liberals. We came in 3rd. There was a poll that Tony Valeri, who was the Liberal MP and former transport minister, he won that poll 300-1. We came in 3rd. Those people didn't go NDP. They went Conservative. And it's not that they're true blue right-wing Conservatives. They felt that the Conservatives, Doug Ford, was talking about more of the things that were important to them. Until we go back to where we're supposed to go, we're going to be in the wilderness. One other thing, we won the federal election. We had more seats. We've lost the popular vote twice in a row in the last 2 elections. So that's if you're not worried by that, then, we're in bigger trouble than I thought.
Well, as I say, you have friends in all 3 political parties, contacts in all 3 political parties. Do they see that there's a shifting of the ground below them here as to what's happening? Both federally and provincially, quite frankly, because these are not the same sorts of political parties that for instance, you saw, when you got into politics yourself in 1979. The Liberals are different. The Conservatives are certainly different. They've gone through a number of different machinations, from those early days with you, from David Peterson as a Liberal. Then Mike Harris came along with the Common Sense Revolution. We have fear instilled in us, I guess, by some of these movements. But who's doing the analysis to say, whoa, that was a wrong turn. Let's try to pull back and do this. Does that even happen?
Well, I mean, I'm not in the top echelons of the party, although there's 2 parts to our party. There's the politicians, and then there's the actual party machine itself. And I'm more close to that group, the second group. A lot of them left after the last election. I mean, they saw the writing on the wall. They were a little angry. And I'm not blasting the politicians in my party. I just wish they would listen. I had a chance to speak with the Prime Minister, and it was one of the great honors of my life to put my name on a campaign sign with him. I just wanted to add a different voice to the party. I'm not blasting Prime Minister Trudeau. I think he's doing a great job. I think there needs to be more of a diverse opinion in our party. We have to go back to where we were. And if we do that, we'll be fine. But I wrote in my op-ed, if the Conservatives ever got their act together, and I don't know if they ever will, if they pick a true centrist who's popular in Ontario, then we're in serious trouble. They pick a Jean Charest or a Patrick Brown. Patrick Brown is doing everything you're supposed to do, and I don't understand what's going on with his party. He's visiting all types of groups. He's gone to almost every mosque in Ontario. The biggest mosque outside of Toronto is probably in Hamilton. He's been there 2-3 times already. He won as mayor in a very diverse city. As a Liberal, he scares me.
So where's the analysis with the Ontario Liberal Party? I mean, clearly Mr. Del Duca stepped down after the results were pretty evident on Thursday. So there's going to be a new leader. We know that, and we know what that process is going to be like, although there's some talk now that they may actually revamp the way in which the leader is chosen, the way the votes actually are counted. But is there going to be a talk about change of philosophy? And we've seen this happen sometimes, Vito, right in front of our eyes. A lot of the stuff gets done behind closed doors. But, after Tom Mulcair lost to the election to Justin Trudeau in 2015, he went after the policy convention in Edmonton, assuming they were going to talk about environmental policies. They set the trap door on him, said, we don't want you anymore, you're gone. And there seemed to be a lot of discussion about, well, where was the NDP? And that was the accusation, of course, that, well, Mulcair tried to move us too close to the middle. And so we can't have that. We want to go back to our roots way over on the left. And there were concerns about some of the candidates you just mentioned for the federal Conservatives, that they wanted to go too close to the middle. But as you point out in the piece, that's where Canadian voters are. Exactly. I mean, you can dabble, and there's an argument to be made, I guess, Vito, that even the Ford government moved a little close to the middle. In other words, the Liberals vacated the middle, and they moved over there, not to the middle, but I mean, they inched along there ever so slightly. And I think that's why an awful lot of disenchanted Liberals said, you know what, I can trust this guy. He works with Justin Trudeau. He doesn't put politics ahead of some of the key issues. Maybe he's not such a bad guy after all. And that was all conversations that started because the Liberals basically said, no, we're going in this ideological way, not in this pragmatic way.
Well, you're 100% right. And what discussions are going on, I think it's a little too early. I don't know of any, to be quite frank with you. I think everybody's a little shell-shocked. The party was in trouble. I mean, it didn't have a lot of paid staff. And the people who were there, they tried so hard. They need some rest. We've got some time. Take our time. Okay, and let's have a proper discussion about this to how do we get back to relevancy, because we're not. Now, having said that, the people in the NDP, I don't know why they're happy. If they actually got less votes than the Liberals, their seats dropped. There's a problem. Ideologies, in my opinion, if that's all you're running on, you're never going to take power and do good, and do all the things you want to do. People care about certain things, and if you don't mention those things at first, you're in big trouble. You're not going to get elected. That's the bottom line.
I've only, I think, attended 2 political conventions, working, of course, as a broadcaster. One was the Ontario Leadership Convention when Mike Harris stepped down. And that was interesting to watch that dynamic because that was a political party like the provincial Conservatives that were trying to figure, okay, are we going to continue with the common sense revolution, et cetera? And you had different candidates. And it was fun to watch the machinations that went on. But the other one was a federal Liberal convention in 2006, I guess it was, after Paul Martin resigned on election night. And they had been, sent to the political doghouse, of course, because they just got their butts kicked in that election a few months before that. But as I talked to a lot of the delegates there, Vito, the consensus I've heard from a lot of them is, oh, they'll come back. They're just mad at us now. But, next election, don't you worry. And I said, I'm thinking, no way, man. You got to earn that. You can't just expect people are going to come back to you. You have to earn their respect, and you have to get their attention again. And I don't know if that conversation is even taking place. I mean, is there still an attitude in that party that, well, we're the natural governing party, they'll gravitate to us, sooner than later? I don't think that's the case anymore.
Fewer and fewer people think that. The people I know, anyway. Fewer and fewer people think that way right now. There's going to be an election in a couple of years, and depending on what the Conservatives do and who's going to lead what party, I have no idea right now. We have a chance to go back to what we were, and if we do that, I think we can be relevant, and I think we'll be successful. If we don't, they should look at Ontario and see what happened. I mean, this is a warning for us right there. I've never been in a situation where 2 elections in a row, we failed to achieve party status. I mean, we got shellacked in 1984. I remember that. And we got shellacked in 2011. And that was kind of, okay, let's take a breather. Let's rebuild. I've never seen where twice in a row, after 4 years, we're not a party technically in Parliament or in the legislature. If that doesn't tell you what's wrong, then I don't know what will.
So with that in mind, then, how do you proceed on this? If there is a consensus here that, okay, we have to change, and by the way, change is natural. No political party is the same way they were 20 years ago, nor should they be, because
Right.
the world changes, events change, and people's attitudes change. We all understand that. But boy, you make a wrong turn and go off in the wrong direction. It's a long, long way back to try to get people's trust once again.
Well, this is kind of easy. You want to know how to get back to relevancy. Go out and talk to people. I know it sounds Pollyannish, but go to the door and talk. Don't get your policy from tweets or from blogs or from so-called influencers. Go talk to the average person as best you can, okay? And not just someone who voted Liberal. See, because another problem in all of politics is the number of volunteering is dropped significantly. I remember campaigns in the 80s and 90s, we'd have 400 volunteers. It's down to 5, 10, 15 people now, and it's hard to hit all the doors. So, what we do and what most parties do is if they know someone's voted Liberal, they said they voted Liberal in the last 3 or 4 elections, they'll just go to them directly and skip everybody else. Well, you've got 4 years now. There's no excuse to not go to almost every door. It can be done. It takes a long time. But listen, first of all, people like that you came to their door. For the most part, you get a few ugly incidents, but for the most part, it's thank you for coming. No one's ever knocked on my door. I ran for mayor. It was a complete unknown. I mean, we didn't win, but we still got 52,000 votes, and I attributed that to a fantastic campaign team. But I went to every farm, every donut shop, every mall, every street, everywhere I could to just talk to people. You will find out what's on Canadians' mind and what's important, and we've lost that. We think we can just electronically do this, put out some social media, which, believe me, I think has been the problem. Social media is a wonderful tool, but it shouldn't take over from your campaigning. It should just be a tool for your campaign. Nothing beats talking to someone one-on-one if you can. Nothing.
Yeah. But to my experience, and again, talking to people like yourself that have been organizing for a long, long time, you can't wait for an election to do that.
Right.
Because time is of the essence. You got to knock on doors, and your handlers will say, "Look, you got 30 seconds at the door. Then you have to move on to the next one because we have to cover this riding." You don't learn anything in that. You spout your talking points, and then you move on. Here's the literature. Do this between elections. Go and talk to people. Go to the barbecues in the summertime. Go to the church hall meetings and just talk. No, not talk. Listen to what they've got to say. And that's how you develop the policy. Because if you don't have that hammered out before you go to the doors, well, you saw what happened to the Liberals. You don't want to repeat that again. The next 4 years, I guess, now since it's a majority government, these guys have got to learn to listen. And if they don't, they do so at their own peril.
100% right. We've got 4 years. If I was ever in charge, and God forbid I ever am, it's very simple. You're a sitting MP, sitting MPP. I need to see the 2,000 doors you've hit in 1 month. You always have time. Yes, you've got work, and I understand you can't do that every day. And I'm not talking going directly to the people who are affiliated with your party. Hold something at a library, hold something at a restaurant, a coffee shop, whatever. Get as many people in there as you can. There's fair season coming up across in the summer. Put up a booth, and you know what? It could get ugly, and it will get ugly at times, but if people are allowed to speak their mind, you'll get through to them, or they'll get through to you one way or the other. But you're forming a connection, and you'll understand what their life is really like. I think that's the biggest problem. They feel that they're being lectured to on how they should feel, what should happen. Listen to what their problems are. And I'm on the federal campaign. One of the biggest issues in the one area, it's Waterdown. It's an area like Northwest London, fairly new. It's an old village that all the new housing is going around. The biggest complaint, one of them, was no park or recreational facilities, which isn't a federal issue, but I had to listen and understand what the problem was and maybe offer a suggestion. There's some federal infrastructure. You work with your city council. They felt heard. That was what was important to them. And that's what got them interested in what I had to say. So just go talk to people is what I'm basically saying.
Exactly, and by the way, this all applies to the NDP too. I mean, they
oh, sure.
If you want to continue with the same, little piece of the pie, and think that you're going to grow, that's a political naivety. I mean, you got to change with the times, but you have to understand what changes are already occurring and respond to those. Anyway, it's a great piece. Go to the Bay Observer webpage, and you can read it for yourself. Vito, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for the time today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Bill. Take care.
You betcha. Vito Sgro, longtime party organizer, political organizer, trying to make sense of what happened last Thursday. Let me do the break. The Bill Kelly Show continues. CFPL London, CHML Hamilton.